and I am a psychotherapist here in New York City, and this is 4x4. 4 things every Enneagram 4 needs to know on a specific topic given by a 4. I've offered some hopefully helpful YouTubes in the past for 4s and their friends and their family who are trying to figure them out. And today we are going to talk about the 4-wing 3 and the 4-wing 5. And I am going to do 2 episodes. So the 4-wing 3 is going to be one, 4-wing 5 is going to be one, and both of them are going to have the same intro. So this will be the intro, and when you watch the other one, you can skip ahead. I do recommend that you do watch both because we have aspects of both wings, and we are meant to get balanced. So if you're a 4-wing 3 and you just think you could watch the 4-wing 3 because that'll give you some information about yourself, you're missing out on the goal, which is to balance yourself out and access also the 5. So yes, us 4s, we are terminally special. We are haunted by a hidden shame, and we have to figure out, how do we move to self-overcoming? To overcome some of the struggles that we deal with, from rejection and shame and feeling like we're not getting the amount of respect we deserve for being so damn exceptional. The self is something that we are constantly achieving over and over again. We're trying to learn a little bit more about ourselves, and sometimes we need dynamite, and sometimes we just need a chisel. And so as we do this emotional architecture, I hope that you know which one you need. And some of you might just need to chisel out, and hopefully I'm helping you just get into some of the fine points. And for others, we need to just explode parts of your life so that you can deconstruct the way you've done life. I don't think most of us 4s have a sane estimation of how powerful we are and how much opportunity we have, because we are constantly filled with an emotional influx of stuff going on. So it gets really complicated. So I do want to help you become more authentic and creative and sensitive and natural and artistic. But I also want to help you work through some of the depression, some of the anxiety. And I've had to do that in my own life. It is fall. I took the summer off. I have not done any YouTubes over the summer. Some of you have asked me, why am I not putting anything out? I tend to be more concentrated on being outside, getting a tan, and taking in as much daylight as I can out there. And my intellectual exercises just kind of fall off. But then in fall, something happens and I get reinvigorated. And F. Scott Fitzgerald says, life begins again when it gets crisp in the fall. So I just went for a walk in my neighborhood. I live in the West Village here in New York City, and I'm actually leaving the window open today. So I've already heard a ton of fucks and shits and assholes and beeping outside, even though I live in a quiet neighborhood. Garbage man and FedEx and UPS. So you're going to hear a bit of that. You're going to hear some construction, but that's what we are, right? As 4s, we're natural. We want to be authentic and real. So you're going to get a little bit of the real. But I want to dig in and offer some more YouTube stuff. One thing I want to do, and I don't like to self-promote, but for those of you who have subscribed, thank you very much. And then a bunch of you have become clients. So I now have clients from all over the world. Geez, like Zoom and FaceTime have changed the game for therapy. I have clients in Australia and New Zealand, and I have a client from Africa now, and some of you from Europe and all over the States and Canada. So thank you so much. If you're interested in therapy, give me a call. It's kind of an amalgamation of therapy, coaching, Enneagram talk, just connecting. Reach out to me on my website, drew@drewnewkirk.com, or on my Instagram. Also, for some of you, if you are interested in a retreat in the future, get in touch with me also. I think in about at least 2 years' time, I'll be doing retreats for 4s. So if you're interested, I'm going to have a mailing list, and hopefully that will be something I get to do in the future. So again, thank you for following these and reaching out and encouraging me to keep going. And I think what I've heard the most is that people feel that these have helped them feel known, understood, and seen. So trust you will be seen. Trust you will be known. You might have to work hard for it with people. You might have to really help them understand who you are. But if this has helped you understand, Go share who you are with people, and hopefully they'll get it. Wings. So we have these wings. They aren't the same as subtypes. Subtypes are a different thing. You should know the subtypes. Did some videos on those. Go watch them. The wings are meant to help you fly straight. You're meant to be balanced, but we have a dominant one usually. So a lot of you have asked me, can I have equal weighted wings? Yeah, you've probably had to work pretty hard to do that. Probably got some good therapy or just really self-aware to be able to balance those, because usually we lean one way. I tend to lean 4 wing 3. So maybe you even see it in the way I'm delivering this right now. There is a high energy at times. There is a level of enthusiasm. So 4 wing 3s are called the enthusiasts or the aristocrats. The aristocrats aren't really words we use that much anymore, but we tend to have a bit of juice. And so the goal in life is to ultimately balance these out. In the first 40 years of life, you're usually leaning on one because you're trying to access the best of yourself. And so there's an easier access to one wing. And so you use it because you're trying to peacock in this world. You're trying to show yourself off and be successful. In the second 40, just say you live for 80 years, we have to pursue leaning into the other wing. Otherwise, we're just spinning in circles. So if you think about it like this, the 4 wing 3 tends to look bigger picture. They're not going to always get into the nitty gritty and all the nooks and crannies. So if it was music, they would be mostly concentrated on the rhythm, on the total package. Where I know a lot of 4 wing 5s who get into the weeds, they're thinking about the very specific ways the instruments are being played, or the lyrics and how the lyrics are constructed. Tend to be a bit more intellectually minded and investigatory. This is one way of looking at it. I love a metaphor that hit me a while ago. It's weird, I'm telling you how much I love a metaphor I came up with, but there's this composer in Iceland called Ólafur Arnalds. It's worth looking up on Spotify if you're into like ambient music like Sigur Rós. I love Icelandic music. I love Iceland. I've been there a ton of times. And I love to just drive around in Iceland and play this type of music. And Ólafur Arnalds is a beautiful composer, but he's also brainy as hell. So he came up with software and an algorithm for his music. So what he does is he plays one piano, and he has pianos to both sides of him, upright pianos to both sides of him. And the system is called Stratus. So when he plays the one piano, an algorithm actually processes the music he's playing and creates a cascade or an algorithmic ally to these 2 upright pianos from the central piano that transforms all the music that he's playing into a full song. So in a sense, follow me here, before he starts writing the music, he doesn't really have total access to where this is going to go. He knows what he's going to play on the central piano. He doesn't know what the computer and the algorithms are going to do with that music and what it's going to do with the other pianos. But it ends up creating sequences and harmonies that are unpredictable but beautiful. Go listen to his music. There's some that I just constantly go back to over and over again. But I think about the wings in this sense. We are the central character. We are the Enneagram 4. Let's say that. Let's just say the 2 upright pianos are the 3 and the 5. 3 wing, 5 wing. Because of what we're doing in the middle, these start playing out in different ways and act as an ally, sometimes act as a villain to us. And they change not only our emotional architecture, but how we present to the world. So when we're in a bad place, we're struggling, we might lean towards one of those wings more and some of the aspects of the wings. So say I am feeling really insecure. I might try harder to be seen and to be known and to be successful so I can prove something to people. So I'm trying too hard. That might look a little 3-ish. Maybe I'm insecure and I withdraw from the world and I go read books for days upon days to try to, find a way to regulate, but I'm also withdrawing and hiding myself from the world. I might be leaning more into that 5 part. But it goes the same way for when you are in a position of strength and confidence, that you are going to really be accessing certain parts of these wings that aid you in life. 4s can't only be 4s. Now we have aspects of every number inside of us, but we are going to tend to access the 4 and the 5 a lot easier than those others. These are resources that help us. So it's a kind of a grab bag, and as you get more mature and healthy, you can actually deliberately access these. You can say, like, today I'm going to try to really lean into my 3 wing. Today I'm going to really try to lean into my 5 wing. Right now, I'm leaning into my 3, the performer. But to prepare for this, I had to really lean into my 5. Notes everywhere, constantly in books and constantly just thinking about all the sessions I've had with my 4 clients and what things that they're saying. So think about that. Like in stress and security, how do you access these more? How can you access them more as you get healthier? So I like to use that stratus idea of Olafur Arnold's and how this one composer in the middle is influencing these other 2 characters to guide and aid the music. If you were like me, you might be in a part of your life where it's really hard at times and a part where you're really just trying to chisel away. So are you using dynamite right now or chiseling? So this might be new information for you and it's really blowing your mind. For some of you, you've been working with the Enneagram for 30 years. And so there might just be some fine tuning that we can get to here. So hopefully I'll be able to both be on a macro level and a micro level with you. I'm not going to cover everything for 4-wing 3s and 4-wing 5s. I'm going to try to get 4 that really hit some points that I think are crucial to know in this area. As you know, 4s are bent on authenticity, creativity, sensitivity, naturalness, artistic expression. The 3s, well, that 4-wing 3 character tends to be more competitive, more upbeat, ambitious, sometimes volatile. I sometimes think of like a Johnny Depp or a David Bowie, like gregarious and able to own a room, but also can be volatile and emotionally all over the place. But you'd think maybe like a Daniel Day-Lewis is a bit more refined and sharp and maybe withdrawn, a bit more investigatory as an actor. So that might be more of a 4-wing 5 character to think about. They tend to be more intellectual, more withdrawn, more reserved, observant, eccentric, melancholy even. But again, we are all of these things. If you are a 4, you have all of that within you. You just might lean one way more. So, remember too that the 4-wing 3 has this withdrawn type. 4s are a withdrawing type, but they're matched with a assertive, aggressive type that goes into the world more. So the 3s, the 7s, the 8s, they tend to be more pursuant and assertive in life. So that's a unique mix of this withdrawn type and assertive type, where the 4-wing 5 has two withdrawn types to it. The 4 and the 5 tend to withdraw quite a bit. So the 4-wing 5 has to be very careful to not withdraw too much. So just before I get into the 4-wing 3 and the 4-wing 5 specifically, let's just take a real quick overview of what it looks like to be a healthy 4-wing 5, what it looks like to be a healthy 4-wing 3, and more of an unhealthy one. And what's that spectrum in there. If you are a healthy 4-wing 3, you're going to probably be pretty successful. You're going to probably be able to take what's inside of this complex being here, this terminally special and exceptional human that is a 4, and be able to put into the world something that helps the world. Less concerned about what people think about you, more concerned about purpose. But if you are unhealthy, you might be addicted to success and addicted to what people think. Addicted to putting yourself out there and maybe trying too hard. You also might be pretty manic. So I'm going to get into that specifically with 4-wing 3s, but there is a type of mania, of overworking, of getting obsessed about things that can actually throw us off course. I love talking about this topic because the issue we're going to talk about is what I would call functional bipolar, is probably the healthiest expression. It's just like being able to lock into something, but not going overboard with it. On the other side, 4-wing 5, if you are an unhealthy 4-wing 5, you're going to probably be pretty cut off from the world. Isolated, feel like you're not understood, withdrawing too much, possibly a victim. People don't get me. Nobody ever gets me. It's kind of bullshit because you can help people get you. You have to express to them that you want to be gotten. But 4-wing 5 can tend to be withdrawn and think that people should just get them without them having to do any work. If they're a bit healthier than that, they might be enigmatic, just hard to figure out, a mystery, a riddle. They kind of like that at times. But when they are locked in and they are operating on all cylinders and that they are using their energies wisely, they can be really creative. Type of creativity that is hard to match and hard to replicate. Those nameless energies from within get really channeled somewhere special. So I just want to use that as our baseline. We know kind of what an unhealthy and a healthy 4-wing 5 and 4-wing 3 are. So let's get into it. So the Enneagram 4-wing 3 tends to be out in the world. They go out into the mix. So this first part is called go do. Simple, go do. It's what the 4-wing 5 has to access. They need to get better at go doing. But the 4-wing 3 tends to be good at just getting in the mix. They get their hands dirty, their feet wet, they ruffle their feathers, they get punched in the face and bruised and beat up by just going into the world and being experiential learners. And yes, we are all experiential learners, but they tend to be willing to fail over and over again. There's an implementation, a practical application. They realize early on that they're dreamers, but they have to get beaten up a bit so that they don't sip into a dreamy delirium in life in which they are just waiting for things to come to them. They realize that war is the creator of all great things and that there is a war going on in themselves that they will get stuck in, of over dreaming, over fantasizing, and not doing. So the 4-wing 3 will go do. Now, 2 things I just want to say. I did a whole series on work, how 4s work, 5-part series, and I talk a lot about this, how we can do this better. Now, 4-wing 5s especially can learn from 4-wing 3s and getting out and into the mix in the world. Second part is that I'm going to address this from what I would say is a hard 4-wing 3. So you've probably taken the test, the Enneagram test, and likely your number was a 4. Your second number might have been a 7 or an 8 or a 2 or whatever. I'm kind of coming at this as if your second number was a 3. So I'm really trying to marry the 3 and the 4 here together. You're going to be somewhere on the spectrum here. So it doesn't have to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so like that. Maybe that is going to be true for you. But you might be a little like that, or, oh, that sounds familiar. There's no right here. It's just you are your own unique human, and you have to figure out your own unique way of how you interact with the world. So I tested as a 4, and my second highest number was a 3. I am a raging 4-wing 3, and so I'm kind of addressing it from that perspective. So I'm really going to be trying to, again, marry these two numbers together and see how they swirl together. Okay? Us 4s get into a dreamy delirium. We get drunk on our dreams and our fantasies, and often don't go out into the world and be proactive about getting beat up and having transitional moments in the school of getting your ass kicked, grief education, and learning that how hard it is to be successful, how hard it is to find out who you are, how hard it is to work on yourself. So we tend to do this in real time and get in the mix. Our ambition helps us. Our competitive nature helps us. We tend to be more competitive. Now, this could obviously hurt us. There's some kind of healthy version of competitiveness, and you have to find that for yourself. And as you get older, you get less competitive. You get more grounded and centered. You know who you are. So that's healthy. But when we're younger, we use that competitive nature to kind of fight the world and fight others to find out who we are. It's not the best representation, and it's probably unhealthy, but it does get us ultimately often to where we need to be. So the 4-wing 3 realizes that action will get me seen, and being seen is part of what we're looking for. And so we're not waiting for people to figure us out. We're often going to people and telling them what we are into, what we are about. 3s in general, I don't think, need tons of understanding to go out into the world. 4s do. So when we marry the 3 with the 4, we get to borrow a little bit of their just natural inclination to go out and want to be successful. There's an interesting thing I've learned over the years is that 4s tend to be late bloomers, I think, because there's so much emotional stuff going on inside of us. And usually we've experienced rejection pretty early. So we may not trust our wisdom. For some reason, we just feel a bit young at times. And so there is breakthrough moments in which we age quickly and we're like, oh shit, we are what we are supposed to be. But I've found that a lot of 4s don't trust the internal voice inside of them that knows shit, that sees things, that's aware of life, aware of how people work, aware of how they work. They might not trust that. So I think what the 4-wing 3 does pretty well is go out into the world, but I think what they can work on is trusting that they are learning a lot from those experiences. But yes, we will be beat up by the world, and that's where we get some grief education. That transitional school of getting our ass kicked. You know, these transitions we go through because we learn that, oh, I wanted this, but that wasn't right for me. I was listening to a killer song, the new album, pretty good, and the song is called In Another Life, and I just thought of how many 4s live in that fantasy of wanting to do what other people have done, wanting to become a superhuman in a sense, and like take all these best aspects of all these other humans and put it into one. Well, we have to learn through grief and loss and rejection and failure that our course is different than others. And that as we shed these other people's stories, our going and doing becomes more aligned with our purpose. And to do that, as Montaigne said, we have to practice death. He says, to practice death is to practice freedom. A person who has learned how to die has unlearned how to be a slave. And in a sense, fours are often slaves to other people's stories and other people's giftings. They have to lean into what makes them tick. Why are they unique? So trust your experience, your age, your wisdom, four-wing threes. You've likely earned it because you've been out in the world and getting beat up. Grind and chisel away at the unnecessary to leave the essential. So we have to release and let go. Yes, we are going to use that unconscious motivator of envy. It is a lie. We don't need what others have. But it can aid us a bit in seeing what other people have and borrowing some of the best parts and adding it to what is the great part of us. So a good four-wing, somebody leaning into their four-wing thing, the doer part, will ultimately realize that they have 1 to 4 things that they're great at in life. And if they could put those 1 to 4 things to use and activate them well and find the unique expression of them, they will give to the world through implementation. And it won't be just fooled by grandiosity and idealistic fantasies. These ridiculous dreams and fantasies that we have that actually get in the way. I don't mean high goals, but if you are really leaning into your three-wing, you will know that there is a process to growth and to success. A healthy 3 knows that. They have learned that this is going to be a grind. So lean into those glories of practical activity and utilize some of the positive constraints, but know that you go do well. And for you four-wing 5s, as you try to balance your wings, you have to get out there more. Yes, you can be observant and watch from the sidelines and be analytical, but you have to get dirty. Okay, let's move on to number 2. I just want to add 2 things to the first part. So when we're thinking about going and doing, but we're also thinking about that kind of thing that holds us back because we're living in a fantasy or we're trying to live out these other stories that aren't ours and comparing and contrasting ourselves to them. I like to think about a quote that's often used in the stock market that says, you trade the market that you have, not the one that you want. You work with what's going on in the market at the time, not what you think should happen or what you would hope happened or what happened 10 years ago. So I'm going to get into the stock market a little later in this part, but there's this other thing that I just wanted to add to that Olafur Arnalds part that I use in the intro, that composer from Iceland. Again, I'm like an Icelandophile. I love Iceland. The land is lyrical. The land is musical. He was once given a piece of paper by a fan, and he opened it up, and it said Iki Hugsa, Ekkihugsa, 2 words. And he went and looked it up. He says Icelandic, so he could read it. I don't know how much he had to look it up, but he went and investigated what it means in Icelandic and how it's interpreted. And what the term means is don't think. Let go, express your creativity, be spontaneous, instinctual, feel into the next move, trust some of your wisdom. It doesn't mean like don't think, be a dummy, don't use your intellect. That's not what it means. None of these things are quartered within, idiocy. It just means that at times there will be moments where you can jump into a situation, and four-wing 3s do that pretty well. Again, it's a thing that a four-wing 5 can learn from and try to utilize and access. You can be preemptive in this work and prepare to do things that are hard for you. Number 2, it's the thing I say about myself often, is that I am functionally bipolar. I'm not trying to be politically incorrect. If you have bipolar, I'm not using that term loosely, but there is part of my life that has been ruled by intensity that can come out of nowhere and last for very long periods of time. And there usually is a bit of a crash afterwards. It could be for a week, it could be for 3 months, it could be for a year, with specific things. I can sometimes, now that I'm in my 40s and I've lived a longer life and learned a lot about myself, I can kind of see when they're coming. There's seasons in which bring them more. I talked about fall. For me, fall is a time when I get more work done, like this. Last winter, I think I did something like 18 YouTubes in 3 months. That's all I did. Now, there was a pandemic going on, but I was obsessive. I was deliberate. I got up in the morning and I worked till the evening on just coming up with content. I knew it would end, but I had to get as much as I could done during it. It has not served me well in my youth, where I've been too obsessed about things and then crashed too hard. But I've learned how to balance it now, and I can play with it and dance with it pretty well. So I call it functional bipolar. It's a certain type of mania. You gotta call it like a healthy mania with intensity and focus, but also reasonable boundaries and the ability to let it go sometimes, let it ride. Like if you've got the momentum, let it ride. But as a 4, you might notice that this happens in your life. That there's times when you just have an incredible amount of energy, excitement, passion, and then it seems to just fizzle out and you're kind of waiting for it to come. Well, start trying to predict those. Start trying to see when they come, when they go. The longer you live in life, the more you're going to be able to see how that plays out. Now, I know this can lead towards some difficulty in focusing and some actually exceptional focusing. So it is hard to manage, but as you get to manage it and you're less, let's say actually this, when you're more capable of compartmentalizing, like a 3 would do, and putting things in their baskets, you can sometimes even bring that forth and use that energy. You manipulate yourself in a sense. So we can have excessive cycles, or we could have cycles that work for us. And I hope that you can learn this as you move forward. In our youth, envy and vanity, so envy, the passion of the 4, and vanity, the passion of the 3, can really work for us to get a lot of productivity. In your second half of life, the hope is that purpose and your passion towards your purpose and the things that you love, let's say the 1 to 4 things that you love that you do well, are the things that are fueling you, not just getting attention and that envy that us 4s are prone to. Okay. I want to go into a thing that I have loved learning about more and more, which is just dopamine. And we have dopamine and serotonin, these neurotransmitters, these chemical messengers that work within us. And dopamine is how we feel pleasure. It's produced in the hypothalamus. It's a small region that helps tap into that pleasure component. There's a reward system in the brain there that releases this dopamine. And it spreads to all the major pathways in the brain. So it helps us complete tasks or do things that feel good. It tells the brain to act in a pleasurable and excitable and euphoric ways. It actually influences our behavior. So I think a 4-wing 3 has a good amount of dopamine running through their system. My buddy always says to me, he's like, that carrot is always in front of you. The pursuit of a thing is always going on inside of me. So he's always talking about my dopamine. He's a 9. He's got tons of serotonin running through his system. He likes chillness. He likes to feel peace. And I think probably 4-wing 5s have a bit more of that serotonin running through their system. we have intensity. We have passion. We can be, like I said, action-oriented, upbeat. So we have a bit more of that dopamine running through our system. It can lead, yes, to impulsive behavior, so we have to watch out for that. Now, I'm going to give you an example in the last 2 weeks of a message I shared with some friends. I said I was going to say something about the stock market. Now, we're talking about functional bipolar. Now, when I go off the rails, I can be totally obsessed and somewhat addictive. Usually, I'm addicted to things that aren't like heroin or things that could really fuck up my life. But in some ways, yes, I've lost lots of money in the stock market and I've made good money in the stock market. 2 weeks ago, I just was feeling totally inept and inequipped to manage my money well. And so I have a bunch of friends that we have a text chain and we talk about stocks and like what we're investing in and what we might be getting out of or into. And I sent them this message. I'll admit, I'm a terrible investor. There, I said it. I followed flashy and fun rides, flashy and fun stocks with little to no reward, but mostly pain and shame. It's akin to throwing a ball at bottles in a carnival game. It's hard to say it because I fancy myself smart, but that's been my downfall. I think I'm too smart. And I'm humbled now. I'm undisciplined and encouraged by huge gains that don't materialize. Thank you for your time. This needed to be owned and my humility pursued. Drew. Now, some of that was in jest because it was like a bit over the top, but I was really feeling heavy that day. Like I just couldn't make the right decisions, but I kept on going back to the well, kept on buying. The first individual stock I ever bought, I'm going to say it out loud. It's not a humble brag. I lost 63 grand on. I just kept on buying it as it went down and down and down. I didn't use what a 4-wing 5 would do. I didn't investigate enough. I didn't rationally and intellectually go through the numbers and the future of that stock and tap into my analytical and objective components inside of me that a healthy 4-wing 5 would. I was pretty young and bold, and that functional bipolar part that I have now was not so functional. I just got obsessed and I kept on buying as it went down, and it went from $87 down to 87 cents. I actually kept it in my account as a loss that I did not sell for more than 10 years. I just recently sold it, but I wanted it to be a representation of what can happen when I let the volatility inside run wild and the immaturity go to depths that they shouldn't. It was a great lesson, but I was shooting first and asking questions second. And so when we are 4-wing 3s and we are young and we are unfunctionally bipolar, we can make some big mistakes. So think about how those fluctuations work for you and not work for you. As a 4-wing 3 myself, that boldness has also made me tons of money. Sometimes I've gotten lucky, but sometimes I've just been sharp enough to take the risk when nobody else was taking it, or take the risk with the people taking the risks. Let a little volatility and intensity in life be part of the game for me. I would say now, using the stock market as an example, I'm taking better risks. I'm doing more investigating. I'm leaning into my 5-wing, but I'm still boldly and with a healthy amount of stress going after things. So you 4-wing 3s can lean in on that. 4-wing 5s, you can borrow from that. Borrow some of the risky nature. Borrow some of that obsessive component that getting locked in and then putting that obsession into the world. All right, number 3, let's move on. I have a little confession. Sometimes life just makes you laugh. In between doing part 2 and part 3, I took a little break around 12:30 in the afternoon. And I had just told you about the stock market moment I had where I lost a ton of money. Now, one is I was thinking about it and I went, well, they might think that I have more money than I do, or they might think that I'm from money, or yada, yada, yada. So all of a sudden the insecurities came up and I said, well, maybe I should go change that. Maybe I should take that off. Maybe it was too revealing. And there's part of me right now that is going to tell you and wanted to tell you, I've worked my way up from not having money. I wasn't given money by my parents or anything like that. And so I've worked hard to do well with my money. Okay, that's one confession. But during the break, 2 days ago, I bought a stock. And I took a risk on it. But I thought it was an educated risk, having no idea that during my second part that I was talking, the company had sold. It was announced that the company had sold, and it went up 65%. Not only did it go up 65%, right now, trading has been halted. So it might go up more. So when a stock moves very quickly, it can halt because it's just too wild. And then they'll reestablish and let it go again. The problem is this morning, the stock was up 10%. And I went, wow, that's a great gain. And I sold it. So this stock might be doubled, if not more. And I sold it for 10%. I had a good chunk of money in it. So it shows that one, the 4-wing-3 part of me needed to be in the mix, needed to have skin in the game, needed to have that dopamine hit. And I had that dopamine hit this morning with the 10% gain. I felt pretty good about myself. I was doing one of these. And now I feel like shit because I've missed out on at least 55%, possibly more. And so there's this double confession that in a way I tried to be wise today and not overly dopamine seeking and overly like success driven and just take the win. And I missed the bigger win. At the same time, I feel insecure talking about money with you because of all the ideas you could have in your head about what I have or don't have or how poor I am with my money. Yada, yada, yada. Let's go on to part 3. That was just real-time processing and all the insecurities and weirdness that just happened in 30 minutes. Part 3 is called Likable, but not overly likable. 3-wing-4s, I think, are a joy to be around. They're your Matt Damons of the world. I think your 4-wing-3s are more of your like Marlon Brando, Johnny Depps of the world. They're likable and probably instantly likable, but as you get to know them, there's some hidden demons, there's some intensity, some volatility, some drama. I know when I first meet people that I'm pretty good right away with people. I usually sense that they're experiencing a good moment for the most part. But if you hang out with me long term, you're gonna see some of my demons. And so I think the 4-wing-3 has this incredible, authentic, and kind of fabulous thing that they bring to the table. But authentic, fabulous, and fucking frustrating. You're gonna get frustrated with them ultimately. They're the nicest assholes. And internally, I think us 4s in general, but specifically 4-wing-3s, because they're putting themselves out there a lot, can feel like a villain or like a burden. Now, all 4s feel like burdens, but I think we might feel like a burden more, those 4-wing-3s that have that dominant 4-wing-3 side, because they're putting themselves out there a lot. So they put themselves out and then they go, oh, why did I say that? Or why did I do that? Even with what I shared before about that stock loss. I actually just shared that on the whim. I didn't plan to do that. And now I feel a little discomforted But that's also the beauty of the 4-wing 3 is they're going to put a lot out in the world. Yes, they're salivating for compliments and insecurity can drive them, but often they are leading and they're setting a tone. Ernest Becker in the book Denial of Death, if you know anything about me, you know I love that book, says leaders who seduce us because they do not have conflicts that we have. We admire their equanimity where we feel shame and humiliation. Now, a 4 really understands that. We admire their equanimity where we feel shame and humiliation. Now, I think 3s exemplify that quote, but 4-wing 3s can look like that quote, but still feel the humiliation and shame. But they can come off as leaders who seduce because they don't seem as conflicted. And as 4-wing 3s get healthier and they balance out their wings and they just become more mature, they can be way less conflicted than most 4s and most humans to be out in the world. So you got to see a little of my real time putting myself out there and then going like, ooh, why did I do that? And I think that's what a lot of 4-wing 3s do. I think 3s and 2s, which are both heart-centered folks, and we lean that way if you're a dominant 4-wing 3, don't want to give people as much truth serum as we do. Our inclinations are geared towards our desires and the needs of the world. And when people meet us, they get that like buzziness, but also I think we can push back and challenge, and we don't want people to have misconceptions or ignorance or naivety. And so we will push them and prod them to be a better self. And a 3 will probably let you be yourself more because they're more worried about the success and being liked. The 4-wing 3 will come off that way originally, but they're going to push and prod humans. And so that can be really ruffling of feathers. And so that's where that frustrating part comes for people. They're going to feel that frustration. I had a client ask me, if I'm a wing 3, that means I'm being fake or dishonest, because that seems to be what the 3s struggle with is honesty. In a sense, they lie to themselves and they can lie to others. And maybe it's not an overt lie, but they tend to live in their own compartmentalizations and believe things passionately that may never be able to happen or that they can't pull off. And so it can come off as a lie to other people when they don't execute. So this client said, well, I don't want to be a liar. I don't want to be something I'm not. And I'm like, of course that's going to rub up against the desire for us to be original and authentic. But remember, a 3 is ambition oriented first. A 4 is authenticity oriented first. That likely will never change. So when we are successful, we have authenticity leading, ambition following. Where the 3 has ambition leading, and if they get healthier, authenticity follows. So I don't think you need to worry about being inauthentic. But a 4-wing 3 is probably going to have more ability to motivate and to manipulate. If they are authentic and if they are healthy, they will manipulate in a healthy way. That is possible. I'm trying to manipulate you right now to think and feel and get in touch with yourself. So, because the 4 is so self-critical, and because we value authenticity and honesty and originality, we are also going to be rejectable, because that's going to push the buttons of other people. They're going to feel overextended and challenged, and they might dislike us for a while or push away from us for a while. You should not be surprised if you are not always being pulled in, because you are a game changer and you will stir the pot. So there are times when we will be deselected or unselected, dislikable to others, last picked, and critiqued, because if we are healthy, we are also provocative. So I just wanted to share that as number 3. We are likable, but not overly so. And these are your leading men and women and theys and thems in the acting world who can play the deeper, darker character, is more conflicted and tormented, but also really interesting to watch and really likable, just not too likable. Sound good? All right, on to the next one. Do you ever wonder how some CEOs can just jump from company to company to company? And as a 4, I watch them do that and go, how do they sell out to this company and that company and put themselves all in to Coke, then jump over to Microsoft, then whatever. You pick the company, they run it. And I go, I'd have to really believe in that company. I really have to believe in the project. I have to really believe because I want to start it myself. And so this last part I saved for last because I really enjoy how 4-wing 3s sell themselves and sell their loves. I call this the pale individual. I think it's a Nietzsche quote or term in which it means that the person who has the courage to follow the lyrical moment. So 3s are proactive, they're doers, they're assertives, they make great CEOs. We 4s are more withdrawn, we pull away to figure out. And what we do really well as time goes on in our lives is we pull back to figure out what our purpose is and what our loves are. Talk a lot about this in the work part, that 5-part series I do on work, where I talk about your 4 loves, for example. What are your 4 loves? And can you build a life off of those 4 loves and make that a career or a living of some sort? So we pull back to figure out ourselves, tinker with the gadgetry so much that we know exactly what we love. And 4-wing 3s can be passionate and vigorous and even forceful with their love of things. They take that courage and confidence and they put it together. And the good thing is we will expose ourselves. When we love something, we'll expose how much we love it enthusiastically with a kind of public power. Not power over, not an inherently bad power, but a humble power, like from the word hummus. A lot of people, I think, misuse the word humility. If you ask me what I think humility means, and I think this is a good thing for 4s because we like to be out there sometimes. We like to be showy. We like to be revealed. We like to be seen. And we feel like we're not being humble in that. But humility to me is knowing what your true self is. If your true self likes to be on stage, then that is humbling yourself enough to follow your purpose. The core of yourself. You learn yourself well enough to follow the internal voice. That true self, the blueprint that was there before you were out of the womb. And we can defend and celebrate that publicly. Sure, we salivate for compliments. Sure, some of our insecurity can drive us to prove ourselves more. But we're usually pretty good at predicting what people like. This plays into that aristocrat or kind of like that scenester, the hipster, the character who knows how to dress right, look right, that we have great taste. And when we love something, we market it, we go to public relations and we pump out a PR campaign, we pitch, we sell unapologetically because we know what our audience wants. They want some of what we're into because we're into good things. So the four-wing three, when they are healthy, have to believe in what they are selling, and often you're selling yourself. Now that could bring up shame, right? We have shame as a constant ghost flying around us. We are aware of our rejectability, of our annoying spots, of how we can grade on people and grind on them. We know what is dislikable. And we know that there's parts of ourselves that are dislikable because we're so self-critical. So when we put ourselves out, a shame can come, and we have to, in a sense, reject that shame so we can give great things to people. Now, again, I bring up the late bloomer thing. I think a lot of fours tend to be late bloomers because there's so much going on inside of them that they're pursuing a very high standard of purpose. So it feels like it takes a long time to get there. So they might start to really hit their zones of expertise and real productivity and power in their voice and command after 35. But think about it. If you're a four-wing three or you want to lean into that wing, you might not be the best at keeping a team together because you're an individualist, but I bet you pull great humans around you and you know how to use them well. You might not lead the team of them well, but you know how to individually use them well. So I think that four-wing threes tend to draw great humans to them. They're an open ground for kind of kicking around ideas and coming up with creative solutions to problems, and for people to find their passion through those folks. They are the pale individuals. They know how to step into the lyrical moment and give music to the world. And they do it with some kind of public flair. We have a fear of not being significant, of not being distinguished, of not having a legacy. So it does drive us. But again, as we get older in the second half of our life, it tends to not be so misleading to ourselves or others, how we put ourselves into the world. We tend to be less self-critical. We actually, like threes, tend to compartmentalize some things better. Threes are great at compartmentalizing things. We aren't. So when we actually find place to compartmentalize consciously, we can hold off some of the voices to get the job done. And while threes are often, for a long period of time, in deep denial about the whispers, they put them so far in the compartment that they end up full blast attacking them later on. We're so aware of all of these foibles and mistakes that if we can intentionally put it into the compartment and intentionally avoid those whispers, intentionally avoid the anticipatory shame that we know is coming, we can be really successful. We have that go-getter stuff the assertive types have. Just a good bit of it, with also the ability to withdraw and think. And again, remember, you are not neutral. You're not normal, fours. So you will be often a truth drug for people, yep. It may be oppressive to them and also at the same time inflated and uncorked and kind of showing off all your contours. But you are likely to also be very inspirational. So use that enthusiasm, use that passion and vigor, and be bold with it. And that's what you can borrow from the threes. They're going to get the mission done, and they're going to, even if they don't really believe in it, like a lot of CEOs are just working for the money, they still have the ability to show some way that they believe in it. We actually get into the thing we believe in and go after it. So I think this is a good time to just honor that self-revelation that we have and permission others to reveal also. There's this quote by Georgia O'Keeffe that is sort of a four quote. I think that the part of being constantly terrified might not, maybe like if we added in shame instead of terror, like fear. But she says, I've been absolutely terrified every moment of my life and never let it keep me from doing a single thing I've wanted to do. Fours are bold enough to go after what they want. Oftentimes it takes them a long time to get to that and have it structured enough, but allow your exceptionality to rise to the surface and reveal. Reveal, reveal, reveal. It will hurt because you will feel the shame that comes on the heels of it. Because being out there is going to get criticism, and you know how people think because you're so damn aware. You know humans. You know that they're making narratives up in their head, and you have to fight through that. I think four-wing threes do that the best. So four-wing fives borrow from the four-wing three in this part of life to be more out there and whole in the way you deliver to the world. All right, I'm going to come back and close it up. Hopefully this has been somewhat helpful. All right, it was great being with you. Just some final words of encouragement, and I hope that you have felt seen and understood and known. Take heart. You are not the worst parts of a three, deceitful and superficial. You are still a four with a lot of three juice. And if you're a five-wing, borrow from the threes. It's cool. It's okay. That aristocratic type that the four-wing three is called just means that you are a lord or a lady. You are superior to all the rest. There's a dramatic effect, right? We use. Fours are the most complex. At our lows, we are digging a tunnel to the other side of the world. At our highs, we are planting our flag on the moon or flying to Mars. We have to deal with that internal volatility. And so do other people. That's why they get four fatigue. They're fatigued by us fours. But the four-wing three is an emotional risk taker. Yes, they're competitive and ambitious. They like to be seen. They are image conscious, often flamboyant, often fluctuating in their emotions and can be volatile. But there's so much good. And as we get healthier, we can take simple incidental moments in life and magnify them, the glories and the just beautiful little nuances of life we can share with people. And we do that through self-reflection and self-revelation. We can be the only loneliest extroverts. And we, yes, use our rejection to fuel us. But it's part of how we roll. So be good to yourselves, be kind to yourselves. Know that you are in process and you're constantly evolving. Do the work, whether it's with dynamite or with a chisel. And thank you so much for coming along the journey. Please subscribe if you can. Again, if you're looking for therapy, reach out. And also, if in the future you'd like to do a retreat, please reach out. I'm going to try to set something up cool for in the next 2 years sometime. So I'm going to make a mailing list, and maybe you'll want to go somewhere cool to hang out with fours. All the drama and joy that could be involved in that. I'm Drew, and as I say at the end of every one of these, everything is yet to be done, everything. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.